Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well on this Thursday. I thought it was a bit fitting for those who are in New York City and have experienced the rain this morning. The name of this song that I got to use is called "Rainy Day," so I thought that was very fitting. So yeah, going ahead and take that music out. Amazing. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to episode 46. First of all, I want to talk about the fact that the other last week I got to see the Into the Woods revival at the St. James. It was amazing. It was so good. If you have the chance, go see it. Everyone is absolutely amazing. Stephanie J. Block and her husband Sebastian Arcelis as the baker and the baker's wife, stunning. So nuanced and gorgeous performances. Krista gives such a beautiful performance as Cinderella. It was also Andy Carl's last night when I got to see it, so that was really special, and I was really impressed by like his differentiation between the wolf and the prince. It was so funny and it was so good. So well done by everyone. I didn't get to see Joshua Henry, but luckily his understudy, Jason Forbach, was wonderful and just as amazing. So all of their understudies are also incredible. And do you need more evidence to go see this show? I mean, come on. And of course, Milky White, puppeted by Kennedy Kanagawa, was as perfect as everyone had already told me. And it was so fun. But yeah, shout out to Broadway 2-for-1 tickets. They do it like every September and then either like January or February. So if there are shows that you want to see, take advantage of Broadway 2-for-1 week because it is so great to go see these incredible shows that maybe you don't quite have the money for, but you can during Broadway 2-for-1 week. So with that mini advertisement that I'm simply not sponsored for, but with that, we'll go ahead and start episode 46. My guest today is a 23-year-old actor from Lynchburg, Virginia, who just moved to New York City. He graduated from Longwood University in Farmville, Virginia in 2019 and received his BFA in theatrical performance. While in school, he founded Intuition Theater Group, which allowed him to produce, direct, and act in several comedies with his friends. Currently, he's taking calls in Candle House Collective's over-the-phone thriller, Lennox Mutual. He can also be found working at his favorite place in New York City, the Drama Bookshop. He also enjoys directing, singing, playing the guitar, long walks on the beach, and making lists. We've only met one other time, but we hit it off right off the bat. And those were 3 very long days, which we'll get into here in a bit. So without further ado, this is Aaron Clark Burstein.
Hello, how's it going?
Hi, good. How about you?
I'm good. Long time no see. It's like we were just talking. It's crazy.
I know, it's like we were just talking. No, it's crazy. It's funny because we're talking as if we saw each other like yesterday, but I'm like looking at the date and I'm like, that was 2 months ago. That's insane.
Oh my God. Time is not real. It's just a human construct. There's no way that was only 2 months ago. That's crazy.
I know, absolutely. Also, we'll get into how we know each other in just a second, but I still have to shout out the fact that we're both wearing Wicked shirts today, completely unplanned.
Gotta rep that amazing show.
Gotta rep it.
Incredible.
Yeah, because they definitely need the press, you know.
That's right, for sure. I love it. Love some serendipity like that.
Yes, exactly. So I always give context. How do I know my guest? We worked together doing a background job for the upcoming reboot reimagining of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Who knows when that'll be released, but that was so wild too, because like that was a whole 3-day shoot, full like 14-hour days. I had only done like 1-day shoots up until that point. Like I did one yesterday and it was just like 1 day. So like it's so cool how on 3-day or like multiple day shoots you really start to talk to like all the other background actors and everyone really does know each other by the end. And it's the multiple days is just so interesting.
It's insane. That's one of the reasons why I love background work so much, is just like getting to meet so many freaking cool people. Like some of the coolest actors that I've met have been through just working on background gigs, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith was no exception. Y'all were amazing.
Exactly. And the original was a film, but this was for a TV set. But I don't know that I've actually done background for film, so I can't like vouch whether that's that's different at all. I really don't know. But yeah, being on set is always such a fun time, and there's such cool people that you can meet. But had you done you had done background work prior to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, yeah?
Yeah, I did a bunch of things in Virginia before I moved. The first thing I ever did was I was a student in the Walking Dead spinoff, World Beyond. It was a very interesting time, but I initially just came in as a student, and they had like this gigantic campus of just a bunch of people, young people. And I was used in a couple crowd scenes. And then a couple days later, they emailed me and they were like, "Hey, the director likes your look. We want to use you as a body double for one of the leads." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And that was super cool. It was a very interesting experience because I was supposed to wake up super, super early at like the crack of dawn and drive to another town like 2 hours away. My alarms either like didn't go off or I slept through them, which I am prone to doing because I have bad sleeping habits. But I woke up like an hour late to a bunch of phone calls from the production, and they were like, "Hey, where are you?" And I was like, "I am on the way right now." And luckily they were already behind for some other reasons, so like it didn't affect anything. But I have never made that mistake again. You're sucked.
Like, I have always been on time.
That was rough. But after I got over the shock of that, it was a really, really cool shoot. I basically just was playing a dead body, not a zombie, but a dead body of one of the characters, and I got like dragged through the mud by one of the leads. And it was super like gritty and gross and fun, and I had a blast. It was a really good time.
I hope you have like clips of it, or like you can't tell that that's necessarily me because I look like someone else, but that's me.
Totally. I remember my friends and I were like watching it when it premiered, and like you could never see my face, of course, but like they were like, "Oh, that's Aaron's hair. That's his shoulder. That's crazy. Whoa."
You're like, "That is me. I swear."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So getting back to sort of the beginning of things for you, how did you first get started in theater?
So in high school, I was friends with a couple of theater people, but I never like actively got into it until the tail end of my freshman year, when one of my friends asked me to be in his one act. Every year, the acting class would everyone in the class would write and produce and direct their own like 10-minute play as like their final project for the year,
Oh,
and
that's
they
sick.
had to. It was so much fun. And one of my friends asked me to be in his, and then once I started working on that, someone else asked me to be in theirs, and then someone asked me to be in theirs. So I was doing like three at a time. And it was wild and super, super fun. And I was like, okay, I want to do more of this, please. And the next year I auditioned for shows, and I was in my first ever show was the stage version of A Christmas Story, the play. I played Flick, the kid who got his tongue stuck to the pole.
Oh
Um,
no.
it was a wild time, but I met through that show. I met some of my like best lifelong friends. The kid who played Ralphie, Matt, is my current best friend, and we moved up here together.
Oh,
And yeah, it was a really good experience and got me hooked on the bug
yeah, it definitely gave you that theater bug for sure. And
for
would you
sure.
say that that was like your like overture light bulb moment of like, oh, I think I'm gonna like do this, or is that something else a little bit later?
That came later. I was definitely like invested in theater at the moment, but I was like, I think this is just a fun hobby.
Yeah.
Um, I was more into like at that point I thought that I wanted to go into like animation and film, like from a
Oh,
behind the
sick.
camera standpoint.
Yeah.
Because at that point, throughout like middle and high school, I had just been making like stupid YouTube videos with my friends,
As you
and
do.
of course, as everyone does. But then I actually started taking the acting class my sophomore year, or junior year, my junior year of high school. And every year, the acting class would do a competition piece that they would take to a theater festival in Virginia to
Mm,
compete against other high schools in the area. And my senior year was the second time I went to that conference, and that was when people could start auditioning for college programs. And
mm,
once I did that and saw the sheer amount of colleges that were like representing themselves and
yeah.
like different programs, I was like, oh, okay, I could do this for a living. Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, like
And
that mental note of like, when I come here next year, I can audition for all of them.
yes, yeah, and yeah, that's when I decided that was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
That's so cool, and that's so special too. That, and I'm like jumping over myself, but I think that really speaks to the importance of how theater in like a school and getting to do it on a level where it's like, granted, this is for a competition, but by getting to associate with like other schools that have other kids doing theater and getting to do it, like bring it outside of the school a little bit. I think that really highlights for students like, oh, there's a bit more to this, and it's not just like, oh,
Totally.
doing the musical every year and that kind of thing. And I'm so envious of that because having grown up in the Midwest in Indiana, it was like my high school, like we were a good high school in that we had a really wonderful program, but it was like that it kind of just stayed at the school because there wasn't
Mm,
anywhere to take it, you know. And
totally.
I think that's so cool that you could like bring it to like festivals and competitions and get to see like, oh, like this is what I can do with it beyond this.
Yeah.
That's so cool and that's so special.
It was, yeah, that's the best way to describe it. It was honestly the festival is still running. It's called VTA, Virginia Theater Festival, or Virginia Theater Organization, Virginia Theater Association. There it is.
Ah, there you go.
But it was super special to just not only get to like audition for programs and see other schools compete, but like just getting to meet other theater dorks
Yeah.
from around the area and see other people's passion. It was just very, very much solidified in me that this is what I wanted to do. So yeah,
I love that. I love that. I will say that connection wise, your picture has gone frozen on my end, but I've still been able to hear you. Can you still hear me and see me? Okay. Okay. I had a feeling that that was going to happen. No worries. We're still here. We're still going. I have been able to deal with technical difficulties in the past. So we're going to work on getting Aaron back on. And there we go. Perfect.
Hey, sorry about that. I don't know what happened there.
No worries. I saw your internet connection start to fall and I was like, but that's okay.
God.
No, that's okay. You're totally fine. You're back on. We made it work. You're all good.
Yeah.
I caught everything that you said. So it was honestly perfect timing.
Cool.
So
that's the important part.
Amazing. And so as a performer, I know you're definitely a lover of comedy and musicals. Would you say that those are like your strong suit when it comes to performing too?
For sure. I mean, I really enjoy comedy a lot, and will absolutely do a drama if it's presented. I have a passion for musicals. I don't think my talent is where I want it to be yet, if that makes sense. I'm still actively working on developing like the musical side of myself. Trying to actively like get better at singing and learning more techniques to make my voice better. And I've recently, like within the past year, started picking up the guitar and learning how to play that, and that's been just really helpful and just a really nice way to continue my education, I guess.
Totally. And I feel like getting to play an instrument is a great way to like teach yourself those musical skills. Because it's like, especially when you're like actively hands-on, like playing something like a guitar, you start to hear it and understand how music is working. Whereas like sometimes I know there are like singers that I know that are like, I can't read sheet music. I hear it and I do the thing. But in terms of the musical technique and things like that, they don't necessarily know. So I think I know a lot of instrumentalists who have become better singers because they played instruments. So I think you're perfectly on the right track with what you're doing there. And so I saw in your bio, while you were in school, you founded Intuition Theater Group. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's something that's very near and dear to my heart. Right before I went to school, to college, I had that summer in between where I wasn't doing anything. And I just really wanted like a little project to work on. So I found a show that I had learned about in high school. It's a one-man show called Fully Committed.
Yes. I think Jesse Tyler Ferguson did it on Broadway. Yeah.
Yeah, he was on Broadway in that summer. And I never got to see it, sadly. If I could time travel anywhere, it would be to see that and to see the Raul Esparza company. But I read the show and I fell in love with it. And for those who don't know, it's a one-man show about the New York restaurant industry. And the performer doing the show has to play 40 different characters throughout their time in the show.
And crazy.
It is a beast, but I really wanted to do it. So I raised some money on, I think GoFundMe, and just got to working on it and memorized the script. And I got one of my friends to run lights and sound, and I put it up in a little theater near my house and did it for 3 nights. And it was just so much fun. One of my favorite experiences of all time.
That's crazy.
And from then, I decided to go a little bit bigger with it the following summer, and I established an actual theater group. Our goal was to exclusively employ students, high school or college students, so that all of the money that we made from the show would go back to them for college tuition.
That's beautiful.
Tuition.
That makes sense now that I'm like looking at like the spelling of it. It's a capital IN and then capital T for tuition, just for those who like don't see it in front of them like I do. Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
I have zero subtlety whatsoever, so I had to make it very clear. So essentially every summer while I was in school, I would just get my friends and we would get together and do a show. And I would direct them and act in them in various parts. And it was just one of the most, I don't know if this is the right word, if edifying is the right word, but it was just extremely, extremely helpful to learn how to actually develop theater on my own and with the people that I love. Just very, very hands-on and just such a fun experience. We did a show every year or every summer from the time that I graduated to last year, 2021. And I think I want to say it was 4 in total. Something crazy happened in 2020. I don't know if you heard about it.
I don't know.
we had to miss out on doing a show that summer. But yeah, some of the most fun I've ever had on stage was with that.
That's so cool. And that's so awesome that it's something that you got to work on and create when you weren't at school as well.
Mhm.
Like as opposed to, because a lot of people make wonderful creative like groups and companies while they're in school, but that's so awesome that you were able to kind of take what you were learning at school, bring it home, and then create something to help these other people who are with you and surrounding you. Like that's sick.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Of course. Have any plans or thoughts of how it might continue while you're away, or whether it can be passed on to others or anything of that sort?
Yeah, so for the time being, before we moved up here, I knew that it wasn't going to be something I could handle right away for sure, especially just with the sheer amount of like competition and like just the sheer volume of projects already happening. I knew that it would not be super likely for me to be able to like make enough money and survive and do shows, at least that I like self-produced. So for now, it's on a hiatus. But I really, really do want to bring it back someday, maybe sometime in the near future, whether that's under the Intuition name or something else. I don't really know, but I feel like I definitely have a passion for developing theater like that. So hopefully someday soon.
Crossing all the fingers for that.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, and it's so cool that with this, you were able to like produce, direct, act, do all the things. Like I'm a huge proponent of creating art with your peers and like student run theater in particular. Cause I mean, when you're out in the world, that's technically what you're doing to a point. And like you get to wear multiple hats doing it, which is not something you always get when you're in your program, like following a very rigorous track. And so I'm curious, have you always had like an interest in directing and producing as well? Or did that kind of come out of, oh, I really want to do Fully Committed, and then you're like, oh, I kind of like the producing and directing side too?
Yeah, producing's never been like something that was in my head before Intuition started. But it became kind of an unavoidable thing that I needed to learn how to do. And thankfully, like it was never like the biggest thing I had to worry about, because it mainly just consisted of just figuring out how to make a crowdfunding site, because that's how we got money for all of our shows, was just from donations. Very, very generous people in Virginia. Thank you, Virginia. But yeah, that was it. Definitely taught me a lot about producing and different aspects of what goes into a show besides just the acting and the directing standpoint, and tech. But I definitely learned a lot from a lot of different areas because of that. Directing was more something that I realized I liked in high school. Because of these play festivals, in addition to writing and producing our shows, we also had to direct them. And from that, I learned that I really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And acting and directing in a show at the same time is not something that happens a lot, and I don't think it's something that should happen a lot. Especially when you get to like bigger venues with more established professional people who have been in the industry for a long time. But when it's for a more educational purpose and just hanging out, making shows with your friends, I think it really, really worked and taught me a lot.
Yeah, no, totally. And I'm curious, when you were doing like those one act festivals, like when you were in high school, were those ones original? Were you saying those were original plays? That's even cooler. That's even cooler, because getting to like work on completely original stuff, it's like you really have nothing else to reference to like create it. And so I think those are always so much fun, so much more fun.
Yeah, that was a super cool aspect of that festival that I honestly kind of forget about sometimes, because like I am not a writer. I want to be, and I'm trying to actively like practice and get better at that. But my only writing experience has been with those shows, and it definitely it definitely helped that I could write it and then also direct it. I didn't have to like pass it on to anyone else. I could keep my vision flowing throughout the entire process. But yeah, it definitely gave me a lot of insight into how to write a play and what goes into all of that, and the nuance that you have to have with that.
It's so much more complicated than one would think. Like putting fingers to keys or like pen to paper, It's hard, and it honestly just takes so much courage to like write the first few words, because you're like, oh god, this is a horrible first line, or like whatever be it. Like I have those exact same struggles because I've always been like, I'm not a writer, and then I took playwriting in college, and I'm like, well, okay, I guess I can. It's hard, but I can.
If I must.
If I must, I guess. But yeah, so you just moved to New York City. So how long ago did you move?
That was May 10th was our first day up here.
Amazing. So then when I first met you, you were like 2 months into living in the city. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And you graduated back in 2019, right, from college?
Yeah.
Okay.
I graduated,
I was going to say we graduated the same year from college then.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah, because I'm like, wait, is that right? Like my brain is like, that sounds wrong, but that's
Wild.
right. Yeah. So then you moved up here this past, like just at the beginning of summer. Had you visited New York City prior?
Oh yeah,
prior to
plenty
that?
of times. Yeah. This is actually from my first visit back in, God, I want to say 2015, when I saw Wicked was my first Broadway show, and
I love that.
Yeah, that was also my first experience with the Drama Bookshop at their old store before it shut down, and that was a very formative trip. But I had been up several times since then, just because I love. There's nothing that can really replicate seeing a Broadway show in New York, and I had to make sure that I was there for a lot of that.
Yeah, totally. How was that moving process? Because it's a lot.
Yeah,
and also coming all the way up from Virginia too. Like there's some distance there.
Big time. It was a lot. I will say that the move from Virginia to Hamilton Heights, where I first lived, was not nearly as smooth as the move from Hamilton Heights to Bushwick, which happened a couple weeks ago. Yeah, basically my roommate and I, we just packed up our house and got in a U-Haul. I sold my car in order to pay for the move to New York, but also because there's no way in hell I was driving in New York. That's not happening. Absolutely not. And yeah, it was just like a 7-hour trip in a U-Haul, and it was totally fine up until we got to the George Washington Bridge, and that's when hell started to break loose a little bit.
No.
I remember being on a packed the packed bridge in the center lane, trying to merge over to the right to get on an exit, and there was an ambulance behind me trying to get by, and I think I just blacked out and somehow made it over. I mean, I'm alive. So
of course you made it,
out.
But
oh my god. Yeah, that was terrifying. I never want to do that again.
Yeah, you're like, I don't want to. When on the move to Bushwick, you were like, you can drive the U-Haul this time.
I said that, and then my roommate was like, yeah, but you have the experience driving in the city. And I was like, ooh,
you're like, curses.
You're right, but I don't want to do this. But
dang you, logic.
Exactly. But no, that was a lot smoother. Only like a 45-minute drive compared to 7 hours. Yeah. But still,
that helps a little bit.
Yeah. If for everyone thinking about moving to New York City, do it, but don't drive. Just don't do that to yourself. It's not worth it at all.
Take your time, take care of yourself, figure out the logistics.
That's right. Your mental health will thank you.
Yes, no, truly though. And from what I remember us saying before, you live with roommates. You came up with a roommate who you already knew. So that's always so helpful as opposed to like coming in totally blind. For
sure. Yeah. One of the things that I'm the most grateful about in terms of like our move to New York is that I did not do it alone. Having Matt with me was just a huge help. And we also have just a bunch of friends that already live up here. I have a couple people from school that I know that moved before I did, and it's been super cool just reconnecting with them and hanging out again. But yeah, if I were the only person I knew up here, it would not be nearly as positive of an experience as it's been, for sure.
Oh, 100%. And I'm curious, so you had been up in the city multiple times. You have like this community of people that you know already coming up here. I'm still curious though, how much of a culture shock or transition was the move for you? Because, and you can be totally honest, because seriously, it's never easy doing the move, no matter like how hard you prepare. Was there a transition at all for you?
I definitely think there was. It was definitely a lot of getting nothing that was like overwhelming or like
Yeah.
insanely shocking. But like definitely getting used to just like the walkable aspect of everything and not having to drive everywhere and just being able to take the subway. And yeah, that just the sheer amount of things that are condensed in such a small space
Yeah.
is also huge. Because in Virginia, like the city I'm from isn't like small or big. Like there's stuff pretty much everywhere, but it's
Yeah.
not nearly as like walkable or like condensed as New York. And that is something that I really appreciate, being able to
Yeah.
go from one place to another. And yeah, and I'm being able to just constantly get exercise is also very nice. Like I haven't been to the gym yet and I need to go, but in the meantime, just walking everywhere has been super helpful.
That's so funny. And we'll be talking about working at the Drama Bookshop here in a bit, but did you get that job like right when you got into the city? How was the job search for you? I guess is what I'm trying to say,
Ooh,
because that's always
yeah.
hard.
The job search was honestly, I feel very lucky because I kind of fell into some really like cool stuff pretty early on. Like my second day in the city, I just walked around our neighborhood and pounded pavement and handed out resumes. And on like the fifth place I stopped in at, it was a coffee shop. And the manager just like sat me down and talked to me because they were like honestly like kind of hurting for people. And I got a job immediately. And then from there, like a week later, the owner of a restaurant that is right across the street from my old place came in, and my manager was like, "Hey, hire this guy. He needs another job." And the restaurant guy was like, "Okay." So I had two jobs like right out of the gate. And then about like a month or two in, the Drama Bookshop was looking for like associates, and I applied and got an interview, and I got the gig. Um, and yeah, that was all just very. It was very very fast, um, but it was very very helpful for sure.
Oh,
Much
totally.
needed.
Yeah, exactly. And one last like New York City specific question, but has there been anything that surprised you, good or bad, about living in the city so far?
Mm. I've never like I'll preface this by saying I've never felt like unsafe or anything. Like I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of myths about how like crazy dangerous New York can be.
Yeah.
And in like any place, it can be like people are people.
Yeah.
People can be crazy sometimes, but I think the amount of I guess just the amount that general people in New York just don't care just about everything going on. Not every, but like I guess immediate surroundings, especially like on the
Yeah.
subway. Like the craziest stuff could be happening in front of you on the subway, and everyone is just to them keeping to themselves and not paying attention to it, not focusing on it, which is like a good defense mechanism for
Yeah.
the crazier stuff that happens. But yeah, that was a little surprising at first, but
Yeah.
then I got used to that and kind of adopted that as a defense mechanism too, because it is, I think, important to stay in your lane and worry about yourself,
Yeah.
unless you know. I don't know. It's a weird feeling for sure, but
No, but I understand, because like at the same time, it's like it's that New Yorker mentality of like, I'm on my way to do my thing. Don't mess with me. Don't talk
mm,
to me. But at the same time, if like something immediately happens that it's like, oh, this other New Yorker needs help, or like there's
mm,
something that we can run over and help them with, boom, like immediately, like someone goes
exactly
over to help. And
right.
I think it's that same thing. It's like everyone's like doing their own thing, but like they also have their eye out. Like
Totally, yeah.
they will be there for
Everyone's
you.
everyone's looking after themselves, but at the same time also looking at after everyone else, and I think
Yeah.
that's really important,
Oh,
especially right now.
absolutely. Well, especially right now, and especially just like in a city that there's
Mm,
so much happening all the time, to at least know, like, okay, I'm surrounded by other people. I'm gonna be okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And I know you love chatting plays and musicals, especially ones you've worked on in the past. So, what were some favorites you've worked on?
Ooh, okay. So one of my favorite plays that I've ever done was the next to last show I did with Intuition. It's a parody play called Puffs.
I love
It's freaking love Puffs so much. It's so good. For those who don't know, it goes through the entire Harry Potter saga, but told from the perspective of the Hufflepuffs. And it's one of the most fast plays I've ever seen or like read or been involved in. Everything just moves so quickly, and the jokes are a mile a minute. But it's a huge like ensemble piece, and it was just so much fun to direct. And I also acted in that, but I played the narrator who just shows up in between scenes and like makes some funny one-liners, and that's it. So I really, on that show, I got to focus really, really hard on the directing aspect of everything and really making sure that the jokes were landing and that the timing was happening. And we also just really had a really, really great cast for that show. All people that I had known for a really long time and acted with before. And just the chemistry was super, super good. And it was just so much fun. I had an absolute blast.
Yeah.
There's a filmed version of the off-Broadway production, like on Amazon. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it right now. It's incredible.
Honestly, I need to look into that because I've been wanting to like see and or read Puffs because I've heard so many amazing things and I didn't get to see it when it was off Broadway. So now I know. So I'm happy to hear that. But that's so cool that you got to both be in it. Like, I mean, still off to the side a little bit because you're like, I want to be able to still direct it. But how that must have been so fun too, because from what I understand, it's a very much a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They will not say like Harry Potter or anything very like copyright specific, but it's still all in relation to the series. So I think that must have been fun for you as a director to like play with those moments.
Oh, totally. There's specifically like at the beginning of the script, there's a lot of notes about like how to produce the play. And they specifically have a section that's like, hey, these are things that you should not say if you don't want to get sued. And those things include like Hogwarts, Harry Potter, stuff like that. So being able to like skirt around and find the loopholes in the work was super fun. I didn't have to do a lot of that. That was already like in the script.
Right.
But yeah, like they basically, in order to avoid stuff like that, they will shorten or change names just a little bit. Like one of the minor characters in the series is James Flinch Fletchley, I think. I can't remember if James is his first name, but in Puffs he's a big character and he goes by Jay Finch. And so it's just stuff like that just minor changes that really add to it, I think.
Yeah, totally. And then so musicals. We love musicals.
Yeah.
And I know we're both very passionate about it because this is what we got very excited about when we met on set. So, so I'm curious, what was the most recent musical you've seen?
The most recent musical I've seen was I saw Phantom literally 2 nights before they announced it was closing.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I had been talking with my aunt about it, who's a big like theater fan. Phantom's her favorite show. She had seen it like 13 times. And I was like, yeah, I've never seen it. I want to like go at some point. And this was like a couple months ago. I was like, yeah, it's been running for so long. I feel like at some point it's gonna close, and I like want to see it before it happens. So to the Phantom team, I am so sorry if I was a bad omen. But after that, she was like, okay, let's go see it. And we saw it. And then 2 days later, they were like, we are closing, specifically because of Aaron.
Specifically because Aaron Clark Burstein, all his fault.
Yeah.
How did you like it? It was your first time
I really
seeing
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest like Andrew Lloyd Webber fan. Like I think Jesus Christ Superstar is his best work. Big fan of that. But I cannot stand cats at all. I know I might get crucified for that.
No,
which
you're
is
fine.
valid. But I wasn't super familiar with Phantom. Like I knew a couple songs, like Masquerade, Phantom, obviously, and seen the movie years and years ago. But it was never a show that I was like super big into. And then I saw it, and I was like, oh my god, I get it. I really enjoyed, specifically the performances were just insane. The acting ability and singing on display was just wild. I do not understand how actresses can play Christine and hit those high notes like that every single night. That is,
to be honest, I feel like there's one that's recorded. I don't know these days. I feel like in the beginning they used to sing it every night, but then maybe adjusted it for like like saving their voice purposes. I'm not sure.
Valid.
Maybe that's just a rumor. So like if anyone knows, tell me, because I'm curious. Because
That
I had the
would make
same
sense.
reaction. I had the same reaction though, because
Wild.
it's stunning. But at the same time, it's not like they can play the same person singing that note. So they have to be able to sing it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not a whole conspiracy. Like they can hit it. It's just craziness. No, but I totally agree. And I've heard that they have like a really amazing cast right now.
Yeah, they very much do. Everyone was just absolutely on point. And I really appreciated the spectacle of everything. Like I love a big flashy show, and like seeing like just the set design and just the way all of the pieces moved, and obviously the chandelier. It's crazy. Super cool.
Yeah, and like as of course everyone is sad that it's closing. It's historical. It's gone down in families who like worked in it and beyond. I'm also just really excited for the possibility of rights being released for like regional theaters and things to do it, because I am so curious as to the different like directorial and like design interpretations of it, because we're so used to this iconic Hal Prince version of it. Is it Hal Prince who directed? Now I'm like scared that I like got it wrong. I'm like, wait a second. No, continue talking. But I was like, wait, hold on just a second. I'm literally Googling it right now.
Please.
But I think there's like so many different cool opportunities for different versions of it, you know?
Totally. I want to see a weird like steampunk Phantom. Like there's just it's you wouldn't think about it because of like what you were saying, how like iconic everything about this production is. But I just want to see some weird off the wall crazy Phantom stuff come out in the next couple of years, and I have the feeling that that's gonna be big.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be some really cool stuff. Okay, Hal Prince. Okay, I was like, nice. I'm gonna die if like die of shame if I got that wrong. Like, oh god. But yeah, no, I think there's some really cool opportunities for fun stuff to come out of it. But yeah, totally. And so then next musical question. What musical have you recently had on repeat?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I don't know. There haven't been any like newer ones that I've like added to my playlist any recently. But since it came out, I've been obsessed with Tick Tick Boom. Kind of to an unhealthy degree. It's a little scary. But I love everything about the show, and the movie is just so well done.
Agreed.
So yeah, I pretty much have that soundtrack on repeat.
Amazing. And then what show are you really looking forward to in the upcoming theater season?
Ooh, I really want to see Death of the Salesman. I'm not like super well versed on the original text, but love Andre DeShields. He's amazing.
Yes.
And yeah, I would really love to see that. I've also heard really good things about Kimberly Akimbo. I don't know much about it also, but just what little about the concept I know seems really, really cool.
No, I think those are both like shows that I definitely want to see. I'm also personally really excited for K-pop, so
my God.
I'm so pumped to see that. But yes, and because you love chatting theater, it makes perfect sense, as we discussed this before, that you work at the Drama Bookshop. So I'm trying to do the math in my head. So you've been working there since, was it like July?
I think so. I'm just awful with time and just remembering when things happen. I have rocks in my brain. But I want to say it's been close to 3 months-ish now. I want to say June or July is when that happened.
That's amazing. And I can imagine it's just such a dream then to be just surrounded by plays all day.
Literally, yeah. It's easily the best and most chill and easy job I've ever had. All of my responsibilities are just selling plays, like physically just over the counter, or giving recommendations to people who ask for them. And that's my favorite thing.
I'm sure.
Love it. I love, one of the best feelings in the world is like someone asking for a play and you recommending one of your favorites, and then seeing them like check it out and leave with it. And it's just so cool.
I love that. And so I'm then curious, what's your current, like if someone were to come up to you and say, Aaron, what's a current recommendation that you have? What should I read next? Give me a few.
My favorite play of all time, it's been this one since college, The Flick by Annie Baker.
For some reason, I knew you were gonna say that, and that really like I'm bugging by that. But like, no, I've heard amazing things about The Flick, and I love Annie Baker.
Yeah, she is definitely my favorite like current playwright that's still like working. And I read The Flick like back in college, and it really, really hit home for me, specifically because my first two jobs back to back for like the first 5 years of my time like actually working were in movie theaters. And I very much empathized with everything I was reading. And it's a very long play. But the dialogue is just so funny and realistic and really speaks to what it's like to work at a movie theater. And what little drama happens in the show is not elevated to where it's not like realistic, if that makes sense. Like it's all very contained and very like, yes, okay, I have worked with these people that I'm reading right now. Like I've seen this kind of drama happen before. So yeah, I always recommend that one pretty much all the time. And it's still a very, very popular show. It came out in like 2014, and people are still, I still see people buying multiple copies of that every time I work at the bookshop.
Yeah.
I also really like Lucas Nace, his show, The Christians.
Yes, that's a really interesting. It's really interesting, really fascinating.
Oh, it's so good. And also, like, I grew up in a very conservative evangelical Christian area of Virginia, so like it very much spoke to me, and within that, and presented a lot of new ideas that I thought would be really cool if a church actually like came up with this kind of stuff. Basically, for people who don't know, The Christians is about a pastor of a megachurch who one day decides that he does not believe in hell anymore, and exposes his church to that and all of the fallout and drama that comes from that. So it's just a really, really cool concept.
It's fascinating.
It's so cool. I want to stage it in an actual church someday, so bad.
I think I read a previous version of it via school, but I think or either that, or I know like there was a production that was definitely set within like a church, making the audience the congregation.
Amazing.
So I'll have to take a look at my copy and see and talk to you about it later. But yes,
totally.
No, I think that's that's perfect to set it like in a church.
Definitely, big time. Yeah, it would definitely, I feel like it would take away from some of it if it were in just like a normal old stage. Like it would still be a great show, don't get me wrong, but sometimes just the environment that a show is in really, really makes or breaks it. And I feel like that's the case for this show.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Those are really great recommendations, and people need to read both of those. And of course, like, this is the silly question that I'm sure you get all the time when you're like, yeah, I work at the Drama Bookshop. Have you met Lin Manuel Miranda?
Okay. All right. Strap in, because I knew this was coming. I knew this was going to happen.
The last time we talked, you hadn't.
Okay. So I met him yesterday.
No
for the
way!
First time. Yes.
That's amazing.
So backstory, Lin is probably like not probably, he is the reason that I am in theater. Hamilton was like one of the biggest things for me personally, and obviously many, many other people. But when it came out, I was in high school, just starting to get into theater, and it really showed me how cool a musical can be, and how just away from like the normal idea of a musical. Like, sorry, I'm getting this is how excited I get about this. But basically, Lin, favorite artist ever of all time, and Hamilton is still like probably my favorite musical. So I knew going into this job that I would have to meet him at some point, which terrified me, because I've had many conversations with people about how much I dreaded meeting him, because I knew how weird I was going to be about it. Yes, yeah. And like, obviously, dream come true to meet him. That would be incredible. But also, I know how not normal I can be, especially around people I respect massively. So I was always a little terrified of that. And yesterday I was actually talking with my boss about it. We were just like talking, and then he walked in, and I gasped, and I don't think anybody else heard me, thank God. And he was in just, doing his thing. And I went upstairs to use the bathroom and like said hi. And he was like, hey, how's it going? And then later he and one of his friends came by to the front desk to like actually buy some books. And I was just checking them out, asking how their day was going,
Oh my
and
gosh.
like internally screaming. And then I was just like, hey, Lin, sorry if this is weird, but I just need you to know you are the reason I'm in theater. You're the reason I'm in New York. Thank you for everything that you've done. And I'm pretty sure I blacked out at that point, so I don't exactly remember everything I said. I know for sure I was shaking. But he was very gracious, very sweet. He was just like, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. Cool. God bless. And yeah, and that was that. So I don't think I was as weird as I thought I was going to be, which was a little victory. But I also had to remind myself that this guy means like so much to so many people that I am positive that he has had weirder fan interactions.
100%.
Yeah. So I needed to give myself a little bit of grace with that. But yeah, yesterday was one of the better days that I've had in New York, specifically because of that.
That's so funny.
So yeah.
I love it when stuff like that happens. Sometimes I'll ask someone about something and they're like, so funny, or a thing happened yesterday, or like today is the day of blah, blah, blah. I love that serendipity because that happens on this show more frequently than I would expect. And that's so cool that happened. Congrats, because I know you were so excited to meet him. So I'm so glad that you finally got to.
Thank you.
And then, of course, as you mentioned in your bio, you're currently taking calls for Candle House Collective's over-the-phone thriller, Lennox Mutual. What is this show?
Yeah, I'm actually going to do some shows immediately after this today.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's such a cool concept. I am like a big proponent of like immersive theater and like really getting the audience in the show with you. And this is the most immersive I've ever seen anything like that. Essentially, it is just a one-on-one show. It's one audience member over the phone with me. And there are many, many other people in this cast who we all do the same thing. Yeah. But we're essentially just going through a script as a telemarketer for this insurance company. But there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more under the surface. And the audience member has options. They can select different things to like learn more about the company or make an appointment or get
it's like choose your own adventure.
Yes, very much so. But it gets into some very, very sometimes intense and very story-driven places.
Interesting.
So there's a lot beyond the surface than just what it seems. But one of the other cool aspects of it is it's very short. It's like at most like a 25-minute experience. And you're encouraged to do it multiple times. And there are certain things that we cannot do unless an audience member has done the show already. And it's pay what you want, which really, I think, encourages people to do it more and more. But yeah, it's so much fun. One of the coolest theater experiences I've had.
That's really, really cool.
Really check that out.
So there's definitely each show is different then in many ways. Sure. Like there's different things that you would miss and you would have to go back and do it again. Again, it's very choose your own adventure, oh, what did I not do last time? Let's try it this time, as an audience member. And I'm sure that must be really interesting for you then, because you have to be very alert and be like, okay, let me get to the right script page or whatever be it so that I can go through the story correctly.
Totally. It's also interesting because we have a lot of repeating customers who have done the show many, many times, but they almost always get a different person doing it. So we have to be very active in taking notes and remembering specific details and specific things that they hit within the plot so that the next time they do it, they can just pick it back up where they left off and not miss anything, essentially.
Oh, that's so interesting. So it's very
super cool.
Collective in between those of you who are all working on the show.
Big time. Yeah, there's a lot of collaboration. And Candle House is also they very much encourage adding stuff to the show, not just individually, but occasionally we'll have meetings and people will get to provide their input on ideas for adding stuff to the show. It's very much constantly evolving and changing, and new sections are added all the time. So yeah, when you do a show once and then you do it again, you're definitely not going to get the same show, and that is just so appealing to me.
That's so cool, and that's so fascinating. How did you end up getting involved in this?
I remember in Virginia, I saw an audition thing for one of their previous shows called Claws, which was a much more like straight up horror experience. Same kind of thing, just one-on-one over the phone. I think they're actually reviving that and bringing that back. I think they have tickets up for that as well. But I auditioned for that and I didn't get it, but they emailed me like right when I moved back up here. And they were like, hey, we're doing this new thing. Can we see you for this? And the audition was also just super, super cool because they asked me to do one of three things: provide a dance piece or just like movement piece of your own creation, write a short story about a liminal space, and perform a selection of a song on the guitar. So I wrote a really, really creepy little story about just showing up in a random house. It was weird. And then I played a little bit of 3090 on the guitar, and it all kind of clicked. And
that's
it worked
fascinating.
out.
That's fascinating to ask for all that stuff, given that this is all over the phone. It's not visual. That's so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like the director brain in me is like, huh, that's such an interesting request. But I'm sure that there is like lots of interesting things that went into like them using that for figuring out their cast and that kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah. I definitely think they wanted to find people who were comfortable with improvising and creating a story and really getting an audience immersed in that. And there are certain sections where they like will potentially ask to play a little song or a little ditty. So I think they just wanted to know that someone that they were hiring, could jam.
Have you had any like really interesting phone calls that like either maybe didn't go as planned or like went in just interesting direction that you weren't expecting?
Nothing like crazy out of left field yet.
Yeah.
But it is really interesting that people will reveal a lot to you, and like we have to ask very specific questions. I can't go into like details.
Of course.
But like people tend to be very open and talk about like issues that they have in order to try to progress the story, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to see how open people on the other end of the phone can be.
Yeah, no, that's just so fascinating. And I'm like, I want to ask a million questions about this. But if anything, I think that this is just a note that people should go call and figure out, like, listen. And I'm really excited to learn more about it. So how can people do this? Do they get tickets? Is there a website? Who do they call?
Yeah.
What's up?
I believe it's lennoxmutual.com, or let me see. Sorry. No, not that. Do not listen to me. It's candlehousecollective.com, and then there's a page specifically for tickets to Lennox Mutual. And we are, at the moment, it's kind of month by month. I'm honestly not sure when or if we're supposed to end the run, but we have bookings all open through October. And the show itself is very short, so you should have no problem getting a ticket if you want.
Yeah, it's like appointment based essentially.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, basically you just get your ticket, and then like for whichever specific day, and then a couple minutes before the show is supposed to start, you'll get a notification that, hey, this is happening. So yeah, very, very, very cool situation. I love it.
That's amazing. Well, I hope people go call in and get to hear you and one of your other amazing cast members do this show. But yeah, it's crazy. We're already at the end. So where can people find you on the internet or otherwise?
Heck yeah. I'm on Instagram at Aaron C. Burstein. Same with Twitter. I think it's the same thing. And yeah, come see me at the bookshop or come do a performance of Lennox Mutual. Yeah.
Perfect. Amazing. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Lora_Marjoram and my website, www.loramarjoram.com. You can find this show on Instagram at Overtures Show, 2 S's. I promise it's right. You can find us on YouTube, Overtures Show, and then on Spotify and Apple Music. I am slowly but surely releasing all of the episodes there. We're getting closer. I keep saying like slowly but surely, but they're getting close now. Like we're almost up to present day. So we're getting there. We're getting there. And then next stream is Sunday, October 2nd at 11 a.m. with Meg Jones, who's also a Villanova Theater alumni who did the master's program with me. And she now teaches and directs with kids. So that'll be a really fun episode. But yeah, Aaron, do you have any final thoughts for viewers live and in the future?
Just support art in general. Doesn't matter what it is. Just go see stuff and go interact with artists and give them money.
Yes, exactly. Because, artists never are making enough. So
that's right. But so it's just so important to keep the arts alive and thriving, and yeah, support as much as you can. That's all I can say.
Simple as that. And with that, thank you so much, Aaron, for being on. And we'll see all of you guys later. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.